Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the Talk and Joe podcast. How have you been? It's been a while. Now, before anything, I must apologize on behalf of all of us at the Talk and Joe podcasting company. What would that be? TTPC, the TTPC, yes. On behalf of all of us at the TTPC, we are very sorry that your dearly beloved podcast couldn't get you an episode last week. We ran into some technical glitch and difficulty during the course of production, and so we just couldn't give. In fact, recording this week was some sort of a miracle, but we decided we had put our foot on the gas and there was no other way, so we just had to keep going. So we are very sorry for that happening ever since. But how have you been? Now, I must state at this point that doing this podcast for almost 3 years now, you will think that by now I would have learned the entire process with which it goes, right? I could be able to do everything overhead and I would have come up with some ways to ensure this thing is very easy. But not really. The truth is, doing this even as long as I have done it makes me search for ways weekly to ensure I do it better. So I'm not necessarily searching for ways to do it smoother, but I'm looking for ways to do it better. You get what I mean? There are ways I can do it faster. For instance, when I started, recording, editing and uploading didn't take me more than 2 hours. Now, nothing less than 2 hours is how much time it goes into. And this is now when the roles are, between every member of the TTPC. And in your head, you are wondering, where is it going about this? I know, I'm the only member of the TTPC, yes. One day we will get there. I believe one day we'll be there. But yeah, how have you been? This is the first week of August. And depending on what part of Nigeria or what part of the world you are in Nigeria, most especially towards the rainforest areas, it's raining more frequently. In fact, it just finished raining as at when I'm recording this. But how have you been? How has the rain been? Now, I usually wouldn't come off as someone who tries to, or let me say it better. Now, I usually wouldn't come off as somebody who likes to be vulnerable about myself, most especially in public spaces. In fact, getting myself to be vulnerable is one thing, but to humans. But getting myself to be vulnerable in public spaces is different. Now, I say public spaces because I'm talking about this podcast. Because as much as I know that people listen, because we are in an AI-generated era, I'm just very scared of the type of information I put out. I don't know. Am I the only one? Since this whole AI trend is, I don't do any of this trend where maybe you upload your picture and it makes a cartoon version of you, or upload your picture so that we can put rain or this for a trend or something. I don't know. I'm just very worried and weary about it. I understand that AI is currently where we are at, but I am looking for ways in which I can restrict certain things and keep them as private as possible. Is that even possible? I'm asking. Some things just don't sit with me. I don't know that some force or some company or some database or some algorithm out there has information about me that can be used for my good or harm. Because as much as we like to say it, there is no technological advancement that has ever hit the shores of human civilization that has never come with its share form of harm. But yeah, so before I digressed, I was saying that I don't know that I'm a person who likes to be vulnerable about public spaces or vulnerable in public spaces. I already find vulnerability quite very weird. And I mean vulnerability to my friends. Now imagine what vulnerability is. But this podcast isn't a public space. It's between me and you. Right? It's where my intrusive thoughts live. The thoughts that intrude into my head, they live. And one of the thoughts that has been intruding into my head in the last couple of days is, in fact, it was quite disturbing the whole of yesterday. That I said, you know what, let's get this out of my head. You need silence. I don't know how else to preach this at you, to put it before you, but you need silence. And before you think that you understand what I mean by silence, I even think you do, but hear me out. Growing up as children, I don't know if you had that background, but I know that elders used to be more worried about the noisy child than they were about the quiet child, because we used to mistake quietness for maturity. For some kids, it was a good thing. For some other kids, well, not necessarily. But yeah, you get the point. Now, growing up, I didn't understand what it always meant that we got to, experience society the way it was. But at this point and age, I have discovered something very weird. The world is very noisy. I mean, you can't go a day in your life where you have protracted periods of silence. There's people talking about things that are not necessarily yours to worry about. There's conversations that you shouldn't have. There is, social media. Life is just happening at quite a fast pace. Different things are happening every single time. In every minute of the day, new things are happening, and it's getting very noisy. I won't even talk about how that society has shifted to the point where boredom is completely almost erased. Now you can't be bored. There are about 1,001 things to do. In fact, the moment you complain, it's as though humans who create these activities and equipment that make for us to be productive. I got that wrong. To be hardworking but not productive. I think they listen when we talk. Because every time you complain that one game gets you bored or one event gets you bored, voila, there's the next one. And after that, there's a higher one. And there's a higher one. And there's a higher one. And if you go through your week as an average person, there are no periods of silence. Now, on this episode, while recording this, I purposely gave periods of silence. Because we don't seem to have a lot of it. Your brain works better in silence. Your mind works faster and wider in silence. Your life would do better if you had silent periods. In fact, I genuinely believe that God interrupts our lives better in the silent periods. Because we are just doing and doing and doing and moving and rolling and running. There is no stretch of stillness and quiet where you can just sit down. Think about it. Even on the weekends, do you have periods where everything is quiet? But there's no sound. No thought coming in. Just the thought already in your head. No fun thing to try. No adventure to be in. What happened? I'm saying this because every day I notice with myself it's getting very bad. I can't sit still. I have thoughts before I even process them. In time past, processing them was very fast. Penning them down was a problem. Now, I can't even process them fast enough to remember to pen them down. It's all just so noisy. There's music, which for its own share benefit has done some good. But this is I can't help. Every weekend, there's one new artist. And it sounds and sounds and sounds and sounds. And sometimes I'm sitting out to think about the fact that I listen to a lot of musical albums, but I can't remember the songs in them because it's quite noisy. What happened to quiet? As it pertains to our life, there are periods of quiet where it looks like nothing is happening. I know that for some of us, for using I as an example, those times that are quiet, where it doesn't look like anything is happening, I'm not getting any, inquiries, nothing, like my life is just moving cool, quietly. Sometimes those are the most anxious parts of our life. But I genuinely believe that you need quiet. Because you and I know stories of people who it looks like they had a quiet part of their life when nothing was happening for months, and so all of a sudden something big happened. Silence. I miss silence. You need silence. So what do we do? How do we move? How do we change a society that has built its bedrock on noise? That noise is becoming the shape of culture. Every time I go up on social media, every single day, something noisy is happening. And I keep thinking, is this my fate for the rest part of my life? Guys, what if our lives are too noisy? What if because our lives are too noisy, when God is trying to interrupt us with silence, what if that's why sometimes it looks like we don't hear Him clearly? What if He has called us to sit in silence because He has things He wants to say, but we are not listening? What if the reason why you could not see that very obvious sign that something wrong was going to happen, or that person was going to be this, or that this situation wouldn't work out, or that you shouldn't use this bus, or that you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't go here, you shouldn't be friends with this person? What if it was because everything was just so noisy, so you couldn't see it clearly? Because when you were more quiet and when you walked better in silence, you could recognize the handwritings on the wall faster. I don't know. These are the thoughts in my head this evening. I'm not like, come here when on the next one. It's Talking Joe.